What is up, everybody? This is Marshall Lee of DonkeyJawProjects.com and the new YouTube channel, the old but new username, Marsh Makes Comics. And this is the Early Bird Artcast number 28. Welcome to all you early birds. I'm thinking about calling it the Early Bird Bullpen. What do you guys think? Also, I already have a wonderful guest here, Mr. Yannemal. How you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. Just tuning in live from Barcelona, back in town.
Back home, huh?
Yeah, it's been a mighty long journey. 3 weeks all the way across Asia, and now I'm back. Still got a few episodes lined up in case you guys want
Wow,
to check out my channel later on. But here
that's
we are,
awesome.
back on the comic book trail.
Yeah, well, that's pretty awesome that you were able to take that trip. I'm jealous.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic.
It's awesome. And I'm looking forward. I did see that you had one of your update videos that you posted yesterday, so everybody definitely go check that out. There's a link for his YouTube channel in the description. Um, and I have not checked it out yet, but I put it in my watch list. I want to get to that soon. So I'm looking forward to that and whatever else you have from that trip. If do you have more than one video, or is that
Oh,
going to be
oh
it?
yeah, yeah. No, no, no. There's probably like three or four lined up already. I just have to
Oh,
edit
wow,
them. Yeah.
sweet, sweet.
So what are we talking about this glorious morning?
Well, I'm kind of stealing the thunder of some friends. Not really stealing the thunder, but they kind of mentioned it in their video. The Artcast, the last Artcasters video with Joshua Kimball and Scott Circland.
Hmm.
They had Gazbot on as a guest, and man, I'll tell you that. And I'm gonna link that. I didn't link it yet, but I'm gonna link that video in the description because I'll tell you, like, it was their um kind of talking about the legacy of Jack Kirby of Stan Lee, and it was one of my most favorite art cast episodes I've ever seen. It just I don't know, it just hit me at the right time, I guess. I don't know. I mean, but it was just so inspiring and interesting to hear their views and stuff. For me, it was really cool, and they just happened to talk about this thing, like they just kind of ancillary just were like, I wonder who would be like the Mount Rushmore of comics or whatever, who would be in that. And I was like, I couldn't stop thinking about that after they said that, after I watched the video and stuff, and I was like, who would it be? And I immediately thought, well, I mean, obviously you got Stan Lee, obviously you got Jack Kirby, they have to be in it, and then obviously you got Will Eisner. All three of them just have to be in it. Those are the main number one, two, and three guys. Um, but then I came to the fourth, and I'm like,
Mm,
uh oh, like there's so many contenders, and I was
yeah.
just like, who could it be? I mean, there's so many people, and it took a while, but I did kind of whittle it down to a few. But and if you can't tell by now, I think I'm gonna make an illustration of this because it's just too fun, too awesome, and so we're gonna see what happens. So I'm kind of whittling down my top four. It might not be your top four, but this is for me. This is what I'm thinking, and I'm curious to hear what everybody else has to say. I did put it out to to the to some people just individually, some friends, and then also to one specific Facebook group.
Hmm.
Um, and I got some really good answers, good, interesting answers. But I'm really curious, Jan, you first, and then anybody else in the chat. Like, who would you think would be like the fourth, all time, you know, person who could be like on something as monumental as Mount Rushmore?
I find it quite a daunting question. One, I am terrible with making lists of like favorites.
Mhm.
So like whenever people ask like what's your top three movies or anything like that, I kind of close up.
I can
But if
already
I
tell you what your top three movies are. But anyways.
one of them is definitely Star Wars. Um, but the but yeah, like it's I find it tough because if like it would have to be someone like so big, like so obvious almost, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so the funny thing is like both Stan Lee and Jack Kirby crossed companies, decades, and their characters are all household names, right?
Hmm.
And so Will Eisner, I can see why you'd pick him because he's definitely up there as well. But then I'm kind of thinking like, you know, if we stick to American comics, like who whose work spans decades, crosses both the big two and maybe outside of the big two, and whose work like who has created characters that are household names,
Hmm.
you know? And that's a tough one because I think I mean you could say someone like well Bob Kane, creator of Batman, for example. Just because those are like that's one of the most famous characters of all time across mediums. Um, but when you put people like Jack Kirby and Stan Lee up there, and they were so prolific, like it would have to be someone who matches their caliber, who's also incredibly prolific, right?
Hmm.
And so my mind kind of goes to, like some of my favorites, like say um, John Byrne. But
Hmm.
then I can't really. I mean, John Byrne has created a ton of characters, but for the big two, like I can't really think of a character that he created, uh, on his own that really stands out. But all the work he did on all the major characters of the big two would certainly account for something, I'd say. Um, but then I'm also thinking like because when it comes to lists like this, um, the same as with movies, like it's always the classics that get picked.
Hmm.
The ones everyone always considers anyway. And these lists never really seem to change very much. And then I'm thinking like, well, what if we pick someone a little bit more modern who's an absolute superstar, may not have been around as long because he's not that old, but he's getting there, who's crossed companies and created a ton of characters. And so when it comes to absolute like superstars and crossing mediums, wouldn't someone like one of the Image guys be up there as well, like Jim Lee or Todd McFarlane or Rob Liefeld, considering his success with like his characters moving into movies as well? I think that would be a nice addition to kind of mix things up a little bit.
Right.
You know?
Well, it's funny. First of all, if we'll just get this one out of the way real quick. If we put Liefeld in there, if I put Liefeld in there, I I might get some death threats. Um,
Why is that?
so I'm probably not going to do that. People hate Liefeld. A lot of people really hate Liefeld. I mean, a lot of people really love him too. But
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to creators, more often than not, it seems to me that most people don't like him because of his wonky drawings. He's definitely had a big handful of really wonky drawings and cheats and stuff like that. I
Mm-hmm.
love Liefeld. I'm personally a fan of Liefeld, but
I know.
I don't think I would put him in there. If anything, out of the Image guys that first started Image, I think McFarlane is the guy. He's the one who really made the Image thing happen. Liefeld was a big part of that too,
Hmm.
But McFarlane was the one who had like the gonads to actually be like, we're doing this, and we're gonna go over across the street to DC and stick it in their face too, like,
Hmm.
and he's the one who stayed loyal throughout all this time,
Yeah.
and will never go back, type of thing. So I did have him in my list, and another one from Image would be Kirkman because of what he's kind of taken up the banner, at least for a while he did. It doesn't seem like he's as prominent anymore, but
You're talking the Walking Dead guy, right?
yeah, yeah, and he's done a lot of other things, and he put out his Image manifesto thing years ago where he was talking about, I'm not going back to the big two ever. This is Image did something awesome, and I'm all for Image, and then they ended up making him a founding member,
Yeah.
or not a founding member, but I don't know, whatever you would call it,
A
part of the
partner.
leadership of Image,
A,
a
yeah, a
partner.
partner.
Yeah, that makes.
Yeah.
So, he's kind of a big figure as well, probably a less controversial figure when it comes to Image Comics. I personally, those, like, McFarlane does make a lot of sense, but
Yeah.
I think for something like Mount Rushmore, I have to continue to stick with the classics. There's too many people who are so important in comic book history. Um, I don't know. I have a hard time picking a guy like one of the Image guys,
Okay.
personally.
Well, it's just a thought for to kind of mix it up and add someone a little bit
No,
more
it's a great
recent in
thought.
there.
I was thinking the same thing too. Like, I was like, who knew people? Yeah, another person I could put in there who would make everybody pissed off is Ethan Van Sciver. Um, but we won't go there. No, but I'm just joking. But anyways, and then you mentioned Bob Kane, and so there's Bob Kane, but then you have to be like, well, I can't put Bob Kane and not Bill Finger, and I can't put Bill Finger and not Bob Kane, you know.
Hmm.
And then there's uh, why can't I think of their name? Simon and Siegel, and
Hmm.
you can't put one of those without the other.
Yeah, but that's kind of how we've cheated already by putting Stan and Jack in there.
Yeah, but they both made, to me, you just can't not have either of those two people. Like, they both made such significant, I don't know, to me they stand alone and they stand together. It's weird.
Yeah.
Whereas, Simon and Siegel, they kind of made one property. It was
Yeah.
like the first superhero. Like, I
Hmm.
don't know if it was officially the first superhero, but it's the one that really made superheroes become a thing, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, the same thing with Kane and Bill Finger, Gil Kane and Bill Finger. What else have they done in comics? I mean, their contribution is huge, and I
Yeah.
think Bill Kane has done a lot more in comics, but you know, comparatively, I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, to be honest, there's no way of making the right choice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you could give it a shot.
No, but this is like kind of my point as well. With Stan and Jack Kirby, like they were so prolific and created so many household names.
Hmm.
And Batman and Superman are clearly some of the most recognizable names, but it's just one character with one creator
Yeah.
attached or two creators
And
attached.
and you can split, and you can split the two up because, and those happen to be like the most important characters though that they did create,
Yeah.
as far as superheroes go. But but with Kirby, you can separate Kirby from Stan Lee, and they're amazing
Yes.
in their own right, because Jack Kirby was a superstar before Stan Lee even started
Yes.
being in the comic book industry. He created Captain Marvel with Joe Simon. So
Captain America. Yeah.
I said that the other day too. I misspoke there, but yes, Captain America.
Hmm.
And he created, the romance. Well, it's debatable, but a lot of people credit them as creating the romance genre, and I mean, they just did so much. Like, before him and Stanley kind of got together, they those two really like that's who that's who companies would go to if they wanted a hit comic book, you know. So,
Yeah.
you know, you can definitely separate the two, and Stan without Jack, you know, I mean, he had never stopped until, you know, a few days ago. You know, like
Yeah.
he just, you know, he made his mark, and I mean, his mark is so it's a different mark. It's not as much in the creative realm, even though that's part of it, as it's, you know, he was like the ambassador for comics.
Yes. Yeah, and there's
So,
something to be said for that as well. You know.
absolutely.
Hmm.
So
What
yeah.
about like there's Steve Ditko, there's um, Neil Adams,
Mm-hmm.
George Perez. I mean, these are
Yep.
all like some of the most famous artists who crossed decades and companies and are known for Frank Miller. What about Frank Miller? Like, speak about
Yep.
decades, some of the most famous storylines that have also been put to film.
Yep.
Some of the most famous characters, you know, like he put Daredevil on the map. Um, Elektra, he created characters.
Mm-hmm.
And also outside of the big, he's also one of the few who made a name outside of the big two, like with 300 and Sin City,
Mm-hmm.
Hard Boiled. Actually, is Hard Boiled Frank Miller? Am I mixing things up
That's
here?
what's his name? Jeff Darrow.
Darrow, Jeff Darrow. Sorry, I'm mixing things up. So yeah, so he's definitely fits the same bill as Jack and Stan in that regard. You know.
Yeah, he's definitely a huge name. One I definitely considered. My for a while early on when I was thinking about it, my one of my number four that I was thinking of was Grant Morrison. Because when you ask people, he's kind of more modern sort, and when you ask people what their favorite comic is, like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times it just happens to be a Grant Miller or Grant Morrison comic.
So like
Um,
Invincible is his, right?
no, no, that's Kirkman. He did All Star Superman. He did. I mean, I'm trying to think of the famous comics he's done. He's done a lot of stuff.
Invisibles.
You know, I'll be honest, I'd have to look him up because I actually haven't read anything from Grant Morrison, to be honest.
I'm actually thinking
But
as well if I've read something. I don't.
he did the Arkham Asylum, like he was the first one who did that whole
Oh, I
thing.
read that one. Yeah.
But yeah, so he was kind of there, but as I was talking to people, he ended up getting kind of kicked out of the fourth spot, even though he's definitely a good. He's also a controversial figure. Some people don't really like him that much.
What's
Um,
controversial about him?
I'm not sure. I think maybe his politics or something. I don't really know. I just heard some people say he was kind of a controversial figure.
Yeah, but
Um,
I mean, I've heard similar things even about John Byrne and Frank Miller, and it's
yeah, definitely Frank
like
Miller.
I mean, this is also something that's raging right now in comic book community. Like a lot of talks about politics, and I kind of disagree with all of it. So you know,
Right.
it's like I mean, isn't the whole point of reading great stories to open yourself up to, you know, like completely different points of view, whether it's in superhero comics or any kind of comics? So,
Mhm.
what does it matter what the background is of some of the creators if you get into their comic book, you know, like I mean, I can think of so many stories which were about political regimes and rebellions and even Star Wars where you could imagine the politics behind it. I completely disagree with in real life, but it still makes for a great story, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So,
I totally agree. And um, I'm not saying that that's the main thing that drops him out of the thing. That was just one little thing that I heard somebody say. I kind of mentioned it, but to me, there just ended up being other people who seem to fit the bill better for the fourth place. And
Mhm.
you're right. I guess Invisibles is one of them. And let's see, Nameless. I don't know. That's not as big a title. Let's see.
Oh, what about Neil Gaiman?
Yeah, and that's the. Oh, you know what? See, to me too, it's weird. It's like Grant Morrison, Neil Gaiman, Frank Miller, and Alan Moore are like they're like
Alan
the
Moore. Oh my
same
God.
thing,
How
like
could
almost.
how could I forget Alan Moore?
Yeah,
Also, decades of work across the big two.
yeah.
Famous for make household name with his own stuff. Yeah, yeah.
In my opinion, Alan Moore, as much as he's a huge person, he almost doesn't make it because I feel, and maybe I'm wrong, but for me, I feel like his loyalty to comics is not as strong as, it's almost like he's such a big figure in comics, but in some ways, sometimes he's not a comics guy. Like, I don't know.
Really? I I don't see that at all. Like I would say that much more of someone like Neil Gaiman.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah, that's true
and
because he,
I think both of them have professed their love for comics. So I wouldn't like this is kind of a silly conversation, like nitpicking. So
yeah,
I wouldn't
definitely.
question either of them, but like
Yeah, me neither.
uh, but when it comes to actual writing screenplays and novels and things outside of comic books, I think Neil Gaiman has got way more
Mm,
than Alan Moore.
yeah. Also, I was thinking of Grant Morrison, I think because they mentioned on the art casters, they were talking about how they wouldn't want to make it all Marvel people, and obviously Will Eisner. They didn't actually mention Will Eisner on the show, but
Yeah.
so he's not a Marvel person, but yeah, obviously I have Stanley and Kirby, which they both worked in both, but obviously Stanley's definitely analogous with Marvel, but Kirby worked in both, but Grant Morrison just he happens to be a pretty prominent figure in DC, but
Mhm.
again, I found some other people too that I really think are better picks for the fourth so far.
Well,
I
I
think.
mean,
Oh, go
I
ahead.
think I think it's that's one of the. I mean, that's fair, but there's a couple of things I'd say about that. Like one, we're clearly focusing, on what is within our range of knowledge, and we're pretty big fans of superhero comics and American comics.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I could bring my, like European comics to the table as well, but then,
Oh
like
yeah, I mean,
where
yeah,
does it end?
that's the thing. It's so difficult, and I'm definitely not counting out non-American creators and stuff like that. Definitely Tezuka, is that how you say his name? Like he's a huge figure in comics. Manga obviously.
Hmm.
Um and then there's Mobius, another
Yeah,
huge
yeah.
figure. Trying to think of some others that I was thinking of before.
Otomo, who did Akira.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's
Hergé,
definitely.
did Tintin. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely people from Europe and Japan. But like, I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with simply limiting our scope to what we like and what we know. I don't think. I mean, people
I
who
mean,
follow you, people who follow you kind of know, like what our range would be. I think people who follow
yeah,
this
and
channel.
I mean, I'm definitely not trying to keep it to only superhero people. I mean, Will Eisner is. I mean,
Yeah,
has he ever done any superhero comics? I don't know.
I think so.
But he's a huge figure. Just by the fact that he did those art books and stuff is a big part of it too. But outside of that, I mean, he just, yeah, I think it's kind of a no-brainer to put him in there. Um, but so I guess I'm gonna go into my list of who I'm thinking is contending for the fourth. If somebody comes up with something that could also contend, I'll put it in the list. But so far, I have whittled it down to four possible people. Um, there's so many runners ups though. So if your person isn't in there, it's just I'm trying my best, but I have it written down. We got Stan Lee, Will Eisner, Jack Kirby, and then Bill Watterson, Walt Kelly, Winsor McCay, and Neil Adams. Those are my four big contenders. And it's tough because I first thought of Bill Watterson, but then I'm like, I can't do Bill Watterson because you have to do Walt Kelly because that was a huge influence of his. But then you can't do just Walt Kelly because Winsor McCay. Like, so it's like there's like that line going down. It's like, or should I just do Bill Watterson because more people know him and he's like more of a prominent figure? And a big part of what makes him a real big contender is the fact that even though I don't always 100% agree with it, he did not compromise at all. Like he made his comic, he wanted it to just be a comic, and he would not compromise on commercializing his comic. And there's something kind of awesome about that purity of expression in his work. So that's why he's kind of one of my probably my top contender right now. But also Neil Adams is huge. Like he's done so much.
Yeah. Actually don't know some of the people you just mentioned. Like what are their most famous works?
Well, Walt Kelly, he did Pogo, the comic strip Pogo,
Hmm.
and it was a huge influence of Bill Watterson. And Winsor McCay is he actually he's almost like right up there with Walt Disney. Like they were contemporaries, and he was
Oh,
doing
okay.
animation. He did some of the first most amazing like animation, to start, the kind of the genre.
Hmm.
And he also did why am I blanking on it? He did Little Nemo, the comic
Hmm.
strip,
Yeah.
which is a huge influence on so many comic creators. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, and
Uh,
another one who was kind of in there too was Bill Gaines, kind of, but it's tough to kind of put him in. I don't know. There's so many. There's so many good possibilities.
yeah. What about someone like Walt Simonson? Did he do any stuff that he's?
That name did not come up, and I'm surprised. I love Walt Simonson. He's a good one. Yeah, he's kind of right in there. I would say with Neil Adams as far as important creator, and prominent. And another good, like if we were to go for a newer person, could be like Eric Larson, like from Image and stuff. But he's kind of a lot of people. I don't know.
Well, I love Eric
I'm not
Larson. Are
sure.
you kidding? He's
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh, I do too. I just don't know if he quite fits the bill to be in the lineup with Stanley, Will Eisner, and Jack Kirby.
Hmm. I don't. I wouldn't think so. But he's. I mean, like it doesn't take away from the fact that he himself is like an incredible creator. Um,
Absolutely.
but like again, like if we stick to the category of like you've created household name characters, your work spans decades. Um, you've worked across companies and everything across the lines. Like you're not just known for one thing. I'm not
Hmm.
sure he fits in there, even though his body of work is quite extensive as well. But the last
Right.
two decades have just been Savage Dragon, if I'm
Right.
not mistaken, which is of course amazing and should be read.
Mm, yeah. I
Uh,
dig
and
Savage
he
Dragon.
and he did give Venom his tongue, so
Yeah.
Have you seen
But
that
I
new
was
movie, by the way, or no?
I haven't. I definitely would like
No.
to. Have you?
Yeah. Yeah, I have. I have. It was fun. Not great, but fun. Like just a fun film.
Well, that's what I heard. I heard it was
Yeah.
like kind of like it's like it almost was seems like it belongs in an earlier era, but it's awesome. And it's a great
Yeah. No. Yeah. I don't know. Like when people start talking about it like that, like they're getting a little too technical with their little review. I think
Mm,
it's. I mean, it's basically it's a B movie. That's what it is. It's a really enjoyable B movie, and it's
gotcha.
not like it's not great. Like when you like if you watch Avengers: Infinity War and then you go watch Venom, then Venom is terrible. But it's just fun. Like the
Yeah,
character they just nailed Venom himself. You know.
yeah,
So I would still recommend it. Like like not every movie has to be. You know. I mean, first of all, what superhero movie has won an Oscar anyway?
yeah.
So yeah, so a total fun movie, and they've got the Eric Larson tongue right. So
Right. That's funny. Is there so there's not a such thing. You're just joking, right?
what do you mean?
That'd be crazy. Like the Eric Larson tongue rights, like does he get
No,
rights to?
no, he didn't. I mean, like, but he totally introduced that. Like, it
Yeah,
wasn't Todd McFarlane. So
yeah,
after
no,
Todd left, Eric took over, and then Eric gave Venom, this very recognizable tongue. Like, I'm
right.
not making that up.
No, no, that's not what I meant. I meant like, is that like, does he get like royalties on like
Oh
the
no,
tongue?
no. That'd
That'd
be
be
awesome.
funny.
Yeah, no.
That would be awesome. Oh
Uh,
goodness. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I kind of feel like with this fourth, I mean, there's just so many people. There's a lot more that we didn't mention here. I could actually see. Let me see if I can go into the stuff where I was talking to some people about it. Uh, some people. Let's see. Somebody even mentioned Disney, which
well,
it
when you,
almost
yeah,
works, but
yeah,
he's so affiliated with animation.
yeah, but when you mentioned his name, I was also kind of thinking like, yeah, but like the amount of comic books Disney has put out, you know,
Mm,
I mean, his creative output is more than just animation.
yeah.
So, but like I don't know about like in the States, but like in many countries in Europe, kids kind of grow up on a Donald Duck periodical comic book, that is
Mm,
kind of like a Disney Presents type comic book to help kids read, like everyone has fond memories of that, it seems.
right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I read as a kid. I had some Scrooge McDuck comics that I read that I liked. I don't know if I had anything else in that realm, but let's see. There's so many people though. There's like a lot of people.
yeah.
Like some people mentioned like Jim Shooter. Um, but I just didn't want to put another big Marvel guy in there. John Buscema. I can't remember. Let's see who else. Oh, Joe Kubert. He's a good one.
Actually, yeah, it's when it comes to
He's
contribution to comics,
yeah,
he's way
he's
up
a
there
big
as
one.
well.
Yeah, because I mean, plus the fact that he had his school and
Yeah,
school that,
exactly.
I think Neil Adams went to that school and other big figures and just so many other creators, who maybe aren't so big, but still a big part. And then obviously just his own work is very, very much a big part of comics. Then his son
Andy
does he
Kubert.
have more than one son that works in comics? I can't remember.
Well, there's an Andy Kubert because I've got one of his comics here. He did a lot of Age of Apocalypse, X-Men era comics.
hmm
So
Trying to think of
yeah,
some others that were really good contenders. Ditko, a lot of people mention Ditko, but I mean, it is he is up there, but again, I don't want to kind of dominate with Marvel, and eh, he's an interesting figure. I don't think I'd put him at fourth, but he's obviously a huge figure. John Romita. I
Yeah.
can't. Why am I not saying it right? Romita. Julie Schwartz. I don't know who that is, but somebody put that. Roy Thomas. Mm, yeah, but not so much. Somebody said Herb Trimpe, which I don't think so.
What about
He's
R Crumb? No.
Yeah, yeah, that was one too. He's because then you get like a little bit of that independent comics thing going. But I
Yeah.
think if I was gonna go anywhere with independent comics, I think like I mean that like old school underground stuff, I think I would just end up going with Bill Gaines. Because even though it wasn't quite underground comics, it was like a lot of the underground comics people worked with him, and I don't know, he's like just the biggest figure kind of in that realm, I guess, of things,
Hmm.
and so historical. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. It's an interesting question for sure. Um, I don't think there's any way to come to like a this is right and this is wrong answer though. So,
Yeah. I was just thinking, like, a different way of looking at it is like, if you imagine yourself going into a comic book store or a bookstore,
hmm
there's probably a section with like trade paperbacks and some prominently featured work. And when I think of it like that, especially here in Barcelona, I would say Mobius would definitely be up there.
yeah,
Like, I mean, most of his work is from the 70s, but like his trade paperbacks are still prominently featured in stores here, you know?
yeah.
And in that
Another
way,
person, yeah, he's definitely in the running, would be in the running. Another person I was thinking of too to kind of get that independent comic thing going is Jeff Smith. Um, but I don't know. I don't
what did
think
he
he's the
do?
one. Bone mostly,
Ah, Bone, yeah. Okay.
but it's such a big
Never,
book.
yeah. I've never read that book actually, so.
Yeah, I got it here. I've read like a third of it or something like that, and I want to read the rest of it. It is really good. Great characters and stuff. It's pretty good. Um, yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's crazy. It's a crazy discussion. We got Show Hunt Comics in the chat saying good
Mhm.
morning. What's up, man? Hope you're doing well. Matt C in here saying European comic industry for the win. Yeah, I'll just put like Stanley, Will Eisner, Jack Kirby, and European comic industry. But yeah, no doubt, Mobius is awesome, and so are so many other people in the European comic industry for sure.
Yeah.
Yannemal's pretty cool too. We should put him up there.
Yeah. Not yet, not yet.
No, yeah.
I'm working on it.
There you go. Um, Matt C says, should the Mount Rushmore of comics be the creators who are the most famous or those that have made the biggest impact? I ask because Rushmore is famous, but half the people on the monument aren't. Um, yeah, to me, I mean, I'm not gonna really consider the people who are actually on Mount Rushmore as 100% guide, but just to me, it would be the people who made the biggest impact. Well, it, I think it's kind of it does have to do with famous too, though, because it's hard to really because these guys, Stanley, Will Eisner, Jack Kirby, they've made a huge impact, and they happen to be the most famous in comics. But you could argue that some people who came before them, which isn't many, especially Jack Kirby, he's been in it pretty much for almost from the beginning. Well, and Will Eisner has too, and Stan Lee not so much, but Will Eisner was there before Jack Kirby actually. So it's kind of hard to say anybody came before at least Will Eisner. But there is people like George Harriman and stuff who were huge, and again, like I said, Winsor McKay. People like that, Walt Kelly, stuff like that, which are on my list. That's my fourth is Bill Watterson, Walt Kelly, Winsor McKay, or Neil Adams. Right now, it's between those four, and I can't quite think of anybody else who could be a contender that is quite at the status of either of those four. Even though there's so many people, I mean, Frank Miller's very close for sure. I could almost put him on the list, but I don't think I'm gonna pick him.
Hmm.
Um, I love him, but I don't know that I'm gonna pick him. And Matt C says, in other words, the monument's bigger than they are. Okay, gotcha. Kurt Swan, Superman artist for years. Well, that's a good. It's definitely one I haven't heard anybody mention, but it's not a bad idea. Um, if I was gonna go with Superman stuff, though, I'd want to go obviously with Simon and Siegel, but I don't want to put two people. Jack Kirby and Stan Lee kind of
That's kind
are
of, yeah,
that, but at the same time, we did discuss this earlier. They both stand very much on their own as well.
yeah.
So I kind of think they get the pass for that. Um, so yeah. Anybody else have any suggestions? I guess we got two watching now, so my usual crew. It sounds like a lot of them are busy today, but hey, that's
It's a
cool.
Saturday.
No big deal. Yeah, Saturday. Everybody's got stuff going on a Saturday, except for me. I make comics on Saturday, although I'm not making comics right now, but I should be. I got a lot of work to do, but I haven't gotten this commission out, and I want to get it out. And um,
Yeah. Tell me
this
about your commission. Which one is it?
This is I'm doing this. This is like the fourth time I've tried to do this tusk. I mean, it's my own character, and I can't manage to finish the commission for it.
Oh, okay.
I've drawn and redrawn it. This one I kind of stole the pose from who I thought was Herb Trimpe, but it turns out it was actually John Byrne. Um, but the head to me is cocked unnaturally, so I kind of wanted to either fix it and redraw it, or I don't know. I decided to try something different. So I
Oh,
used
that's a
a
cool
pose.
pose.
Yeah, I used this pose. This is from Jack Kirby. Eternals number 16.
Hmm.
Um, I found this pose here. So, stealing poses once again, but I don't know. It's what I do. I'm trying. The thing is I've had a hard time because um, I don't know. For some reason, I'm just having a hard time drawing a really big bulky character in a somewhat small frame, so I have to look to the masters to get some help, I guess.
What about like a worm's eye view?
Yeah, I thought of that. Actually, it's funny, I was thinking of stealing this pose from this advertisement that has kind of a worm's eye view. I think it's in this one. If not, it's in one of the other ones. Oh, here it is. This guy right here. It's a little bit of a worm's eye view. I was thinking about stealing that, which would be cool, but
Hmm.
I decided not to. I wanted to go
Yeah,
with something more actiony.
yeah, but then you would definitely get the whole massive like you can make him feel huge.
Absolutely, yeah. That's a great technique for doing that, giving that scale and stuff for sure. Doo-doo-doo. All right. So I don't know. I think we kind of went around that pretty good. I've had some conversations with other people. Let me see if in some of my individual conversations if I can pick anybody out who we forgot to mention here. Where is it? Where is it? Uh, I was talking to Joshua Kimball about it
Hmm.
last night, and so I feel like I kind of got the okay to steal their idea, but maybe not.
Well,
Um,
I would
oh, he
consider
said
it.
Art. He said Art Spiegelman. He's also the one who brought up Winsor McKay, which I totally forgot about Winsor McKay until he said it. But he said Art Spiegelman, which is definitely another big figure. But
Yeah, but
I
again,
don't
like
know.
he did, Art Spiegelman did Mouse, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. What else did he do?
exactly. I mean, he
Yeah.
has done other things, but
Yeah.
that are huge impacts. I'm not sure. You know.
I think it's
Um,
okay to admit that, like we only have so much knowledge out there. And Josh, of course, like his knowledge base extends into design as well,
mhm.
and like
Yeah.
standalone books, which is great. But like, I think that's where we're kind of, at least myself, I'm definitely lacking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely somebody who enjoys getting into the history of comics, and I want to get even deeper and deeper, but I'm definitely lacking in a lot of knowledge as well, and I'm not as familiar with a lot of people, some of these people that people mention, like Tezuka or whatever. I know he's a huge figure in comics, but I'm just not as familiar with his stuff. A lot of these really older guys, Winsor McKay. I've watched a few documentaries, so that's kind of my knowledge of him. Um, there's just so many people. Um, yeah, Frank Miller's definitely kind of in there, but I think he gets knocked out by Bill Watterson and Neil Adams. Personally, I don't know,
Yeah.
but it's tough. Um, I haven't really talked about like Neil Adams, like his actual contribution. Maybe I should Wikipedia some of these guys. Let's see. We'll start with Neil.
Yeah.
Neil Adams has a website.
He's still around, man. He's still kicking, still doing
Yeah,
a lot of great stuff, still doing conventions.
yeah. Still kicking names and taking ass.
Mhm.
Just joking. That sounds bad. All right, let's see. Early work. Oh, he worked for Archie Comics. I mean, he's done real. The thing with to me that makes Neil Adams stand out is one, he's an amazing artist.
Yes.
Two, he has contributed some of the most important stories in comics. Um, in Green Lantern and
Hmm.
Batman, things like that. I'm not again as much as I know like about him. I haven't actually read those comics though,
Hmm.
so I only know it kind of secondhand. But he's worked for both companies. Seems like he both Marvel and DC, and he's created his own imprint. Um, I think a couple times he tried. At least one time he tried for sure, which I think was it Atlas Comics that he did. I think it was Atlas Comics that he maybe I could be wrong though, or maybe it was something else. I actually dug out a few comics earlier, and I think I have. Oh yeah, this is Atlas Comics, Tiger Man. Um, I wonder if there's anything in the credits. But like before Image happened, people like him and other people were already trying to
Break
you know
free.
do the same type of thing. And I think Atlas Comics was one of those big ones where they gave that a real shot. There's no credits in here. How are you gonna start a comic book company and not put credits in there? But
Tiger
anyways,
Man.
yeah, Tiger Man. There's some pretty fun things on Atlas Comics. Oh goodness. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to sit here and read for a while. um, yeah, I don't know. Some
Which
people, I had a couple confirmations on like really good reactions on Bill Watterson, and to me, it's important to probably include a comic strip guy because the actual comic book form can very possibly be largely um, um, basically like that's how comic books started, like was
Hmm.
through comic strips being printed in a book form,
Hmm.
you know. At least that's what some, historians will say, So, you kind of got to mention them, they're kind of a big part of comics. So that's why I kind of thought Bill Watterson would be a great representative for that. He may or may not be the most important creator in comic strips. I mean, nobody's mentioned Schultz, but he's huge, obviously.
Hmm.
But I like Watterson, he's especially because of his purity of kind of how he put his stuff out and stuff. Not that, I have any disrespect for Schultz at all. I think that I actually almost feel like Watterson is a little bit foolish for not commercializing, but at the same time, there is something really cool about the fact that he didn't. So I
Hmm.
don't know. I'm kind of torn on that issue.
Yeah, I get what you mean, but like wanting to include like other forms of comic books. But yeah, I don't know. Like I think when we if we dig back too far, like you end up with a lot of names where people just raise their eyebrows and you know they just don't know
Mm.
these people. I don't know those people. You know.
Yeah, it's true. And Bill Watterson is a good representative because everybody pretty much knows who he is. And he was very obviously directly influenced by the two who came before, like, well, many who came before him, but you definitely, if you get into your comic book history, you think of Walt Kelly and Winsor McCay when you think of Watterson. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It's like he's a good person because he's kind of a touch point for others who came before him.
Hmm.
All right, let's see if there's anything else going on in the chat. My best case for Spiegelman is this is Matt Cease talking.
Hmm.
Is that
Hey,
he
Matt.
was the first creator to make comics a serious literary genre respected by general audiences. That's a great case for him, for sure. That's a really good point. Um, yeah, he's an important figure in comics for sure. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's about all I can think of, as far as this topic
Yeah.
goes.
I think anyone watching this, if there's because there's definitely been a few names that I didn't know. I
Hmm.
think I hope we gave them enough names to look up as well. Because at the end of the day, this is a fun little conversation that hopefully inspires people to give a lot of great creators another look.
Absolutely. And I mean, again, I'm coming up with this list because first of all, it's just fun. Like I think a lot of people when I brought it up to them, they just had a blast thinking about this topic.
Hmm.
Um, but then also, I'm gonna probably make an illustration, with this. So, that's what I'm gonna do. But if any of you like have a different idea of what you think, I'd love to see you guys put together an illustration too. That would be cool to see like your top four. So, or even if you just, wrote it down, that's cool too. Um, but yeah, I think this is my list. I think I'm probably gonna go with Bill Watterson, even though I really, you know, hate to not put other people. But I think he tends to, I don't know, he makes the most sense in my mind. Um, so outside of that, what are you thinking now after your big excursion? Are you excited to get back to the comic? What's your big plans?
Yes.
Do you have a new approach?
Um, well, everything is a little bit more serious always after a big trip because you're like once you're back, you kind of want to pick up where you left off with fresh energy. So
Hmm.
I've got. So can you see all this or no? Am I just on the tiny screen?
Yeah, I see your stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So I've literally I'm at the end of my sketchbook here.
Hmm.
So I've just been drawing like crazy. Let's see. Actually, that's you from earlier
Where?
because I was watching your video.
Thanks.
That's a nice little drawing. I posted this to Instagram.
I
I
think my
followed this
hair,
guy.
the way it is a big challenge probably for people to draw right now. If they were to draw me. So
Oh no,
crazy.
but it's good fun. Actually, I think you kind of look like the dude, from The Big Lebowski
Oh,
in this
nice.
one with the
That's funny.
glasses and everything. So yeah, I'm full of energy. I've been drawing a ton. I've been thinking a lot about style,
Hmm.
um, and that always seems to be something that just keeps coming back. Like I feel like as I'm making phosphor, um, let me just switch just to bit for a second. So as I'm making phosphor, one of the fun things about making my own comic book is kind of feeling out where I want to go and just figuring stuff out, as I'm making the pages.
Hmm.
So creatively speaking, that's a lot of fun. But when I take a step back and I look at the pages I've got, and just taking a step back now that this sketchbook is almost full and just flipping through the sketchbook, like like I'm always, it seems as if I'm always searching for my comic book style.
Mm.
And so I'm always trying to find this balance between, like, on the one hand, like drawing realistically and drawing from life, and on the other hand, stylizing that into something that looks really cool and at the same time is something that you can consistently put out, like page after page.
Right.
And that's still an ongoing, I don't want to say battle, but like just search. And I feel like with these last couple of pages, like I'm just having a bit of a moment of clarity where I feel like no, this is it. And that this is it is not necessarily a um, like a particular style, you know, um,
Hmm.
as much as a particular workflow. And that is kind of my big discovery from the last couple of weeks because I've been drawing on holiday as well, of course. Um, it's really like there's this epiphany I've had in the past where I felt like a comic book, like the style in which comic book artists draw, and this seems to apply to a great many books, like European and American, and it's not just the ability of the artist, to draw to the best they can, um, but it's just as much a the deadline they're under, you know.
Hmm.
If you have to put a book out every month or every quarter here in Europe, depending on the kinds of book, or once a year, um, that tends to produce very different kinds of art.
Hmm.
Like if you have a whole year to produce one book, the book tends to be a lot more on the illustration side of things, just like super ornate, and because you have time.
Right.
And you can make the argument that with periodical comic books, one of the reasons the art looks the way it does is to kind of speed things up and move things along rather than just, you know, the artist putting his stamp on things. Like I feel
Hmm.
like so many of the, like, for example, I have this Avengers comic book right here. I'll just flip to that. This comic book, like when I look at this page now, trying to do my own stuff, like this is not just the artist doing his thing. Like the way the hair is drawn or the cape, like these are all like shortcuts to just, you're trying to finish this drawing like in a timely manner. and this
Yeah.
is I see this as a fast way of drawing it.
Hmm.
So going back to my own art, like one of the things that I'm just stumbling upon is like when I draw in these ink pens, these Staedtlers.
Hmm.
Um, so I go at it in pencil, and then afterwards I tend to pick the thin one first to just kind of get an ink outline going.
Hmm.
And then after the thin outline, I take a really thick one to just what is obviously black, get it filled in as quickly as possible. What are obvious, really thick lines, get those done as quickly as possible. And then I go back to the thin line. And then I kind of tend to stick to the thinner pens and just, fill things out. And when I work like that, um, and I tend to work like that consistently, I tend to dislike the art like when I'm like 25% in. So I'm starting to put the inks down. Like very quickly, I start to have this feeling of like, oh dear, I've just ruined it, haven't I? Like I've just totally ruined this piece. And then this work ethic just kicks in of like, no, I have to finish it. I have to finish it. Like I can't just throw this away. I have to finish this page. And
Hmm.
then somewhere around the 80% mark, the piece always seems to come together when all the lights and shadows are in. And it's really like I'm just going through this process of just, okay, now I do the lights and shadows. Now I have to do some heavy rendering. Now I have to separate the different characters or the different parts of the body so that you can really quickly see what is happening on the page because I tend to doodle a lot. So I have to
Hmm.
make things very clear. And then towards the 80% mark, I start feeling good again about the art that I make. And
Hmm.
uh, and so I feel like the style that these last couple of pages in my sketchbook have come from, even though they're just in pen because I'm just sketching, kind of come from that. Like it's just the style comes from the workflow rather than me consciously trying to draw in a particular way. Like that's kind of receded to the background of my mind.
Hmm.
And like what's in the back of my mind is people like Eric Larson, Arthur Adams, Travis Charest, Jim Lee, because I'm watching a lot of his videos.
Hmm.
And I really think it's is his. Have you seen those videos of his on YouTube? You know?
I watched a lot of them months ago, but I haven't watched any lately.
Yeah, the really long. Like the really long ones.
Yep, yep.
Yeah,
Really good. I
and
love them. I enjoy them.
yeah, they're fantastic. But like what he's really taught me, like just watching these, like some of them are like 5 hours.
Oh
And
yeah.
what they're really teaching me is kind of like he has this workflow where like he lays down rough pencils and he goes at it in ink, and it's okay to make mistakes, and he just goes over it and just repeats, and then towards the end, the piece all of a sudden blooms into something really cool.
Hmm.
And I've just been applying that, like my own kind of workflow where, like as I just explained, like from thin to thick to back to thin again, and then separating forms, and then it comes together in a way that I really like. And now I want to
Gotcha.
apply that to my comic book. And I'm really afraid that the earlier pages are gonna look different from where I'm at right now, which is past the halfway mark.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, I mean, I get into that too, but I don't know. To me, it's especially now that I'm doing a comic a month, or at least part of a comic story a month.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just like, whatever, like I'm not gonna learn. This is the way I'm gonna learn it is by
Yeah.
kind of having these inconsistencies for now. We're
Yeah.
all at kind of that stage. I mean, we're all more or less accomplished in different areas, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with having inconsistencies, and I don't think you can even really help it, to be honest, until
Mm-hmm.
you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
No, I think that's a very good point. Like at the end of the day, I think it's more important to just put the work out and
hmm.
just finish the comic book. And I'm long overdue, so
We all are.
yeah.
I see people take so much time to make their comic, but at the same time, it's like in some ways I'm like, oh, come on, get your comic out, but in other ways I'm like, I totally get it
Yeah,
because I'm the same way a lot of
yeah,
times, you know.
yeah. I've definitely taken my time. This one was supposed to be finished for some time, and then I fell off
Yeah.
the wagon again. But
But I think it's
it tends
cool
to
though. Like
happen.
you keep challenging yourself. You keep doing that, thing with like Ox or whatever, trying to
Hmm.
kind of match up to his. And I'll be honest, Ox is a huge inspiration to me.
Yes, yes, he is.
People who aren't don't know, we're talking about Noah. He goes by Samurai Ox on YouTube. And he puts out like he's just really quick with his output. And
Hmm.
he works in a certain style that isn't, the style that I would necessarily want to work in, but it's his style. And I mean, I'm so inspired by him because he gets work out, and I see him not only doing that, but he's filling up sketchbook
Yes,
after sketchbook, and
yeah,
he's getting better and better, like right before our eyes. Like
yes,
he's really making a lot of improvements. And I mean, not many people can match his work, ethic and stuff. And I kind of look to him as like I want to do as good or better than him, as far as like
hmm,
output. Like I want to work that hard.
yeah. No,
He's
but
a
that's
big
precisely it.
inspiration.
Yeah, that's precisely it. Like Ox is like a perfect template of like what it takes to be an
Hmm.
artist. Like how
Hmm.
to push yourself.
Absolutely. So shout out to you, buddy.
Yeah,
We're
and I love his
big fans over here.
those like he did a lot of DC characters lately that have been on Facebook.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, I think I did see those.
Yeah, those are
Hmm.
really awesome. But then another way in which he inspires me is that like Ox makes those drawings and they're great. They're totally in his style. Like you know it's him straight away.
Absolutely.
And then he puts them up for sale, and that's always the point where I hesitate.
Mm.
And like I've actually gone out um, yesterday and I bought this sketchbook,
Hmm.
and this is like heavier stock, like really nice paper.
Hmm.
And so for my sketch doodle draw, because I've been drawing these comic book characters that people have been suggesting, I'm going to start drawing them on this one. And then every time I'm going to put them up for sale. Even if they don't sell, doesn't matter. I'm just going to put
Hmm.
them up. So I'm following in his footsteps
Yeah,
because I have
that's a
to
good
keep up.
practice. And I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not super. I mean, I'm happy with my output lately, but I'm also, just like every artist, I'm not happy with it too, and
Yeah.
but I'm putting it out, I don't care. I'm putting it out there, and I was even getting pretty hesitant with the idea of once Corncob Rob is done putting it out as an actual comic, because I'm like, wow, if I wait until like 5 months from now, whatever comic I'm making then will be so much better. But you know what? I think I'm still just gonna put it out. It is what it
I think you
is.
should.
Yeah, and I'm gonna make it like a real comic, and it's just like, you know, just do it. Just put the stuff out. I don't know. You kind of like my video yesterday. Like you're only gonna figure this stuff out by doing it. You
Yeah.
can't just try to keep planning and planning and planning till you never, and never put anything out. It's
Hmm. Yeah, but also like it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah,
And I
for
think
sure.
this is like one of the pitfalls of like that I've had myself as an artist as well. And I think it resonates with lots of artists is that like you only want to put stuff out when it's perfect, you
Hmm.
know, whatever that is.
Right.
And it becomes more of a like we become more hamstrung by it than it actually allows us to produce better work,
Mm.
you know? And so like and this is also something I just find in general, I just find very inspiring being on places like Instagram where there's so many young artists who just put their stuff out there and they put it up for sale straight away, just
Hmm.
like Ox does. And they don't seem to think twice about it.
Right.
And that's just, yeah, I don't know. It's okay to make mistakes. So we might as well just, wasn't it like, because you're a big fan of the image guys as well, but like, there's a video of Todd McFarlane out there where he talks about his early years, and he mentions that he must have sent out like 700, like he has something like 700 rejection letters
Yeah.
trying to get a job.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. And I would love to do the same thing, like start collecting them. I've heard people like they frame them, when they get rejection letters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I kind of want to do that, but I don't know. I'm not really trying to get into the big two, so it's a little bit different. But
Mm-hmm.
it is. You just got to put it out there, and that I've been kind of dipping into trying to get some client work and stuff with art,
Mm-hmm.
and I see what these people are asking for, and I'm like hesitant, like maybe I'm not good enough for that job. But you know what?
I have the same.
I've just been like, you know what? I'm just going to send you my portfolio because most likely I'm more critical about it than they are going to be anyways. And,
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe they'll like it. And if they like it, I'll do what I can.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Like, but it's the same, like the age old question of like, how much, what kind of price tag should I put on my art?
Hmm.
That's another one where I'm always hesitant, like, because you were talking to Chris Isaacson
Hmm.
from the Philippines not too long ago, and he's put that question out to us in on a different page.
Hmm.
And it's also a question that I'm like I don't know, like it's one thing to charge, and it's another to actually get to clients, and like I don't know, but I think we just have to put ourselves out there and fail and be okay
Right.
with it. Like I did last year with my Sagrada Familia. I made those drawings of the famous church.
Yeah.
And I realized like hardly anyone was using those tags online. And I put it out there at a reasonable price, and I managed to sell, but only in person, never online. So
Right.
I'm just gonna
And
have to
I
try that
am
again.
the happy owner of one of those sketches.
Yeah,
So thank you again for that. That's so
yeah, no
cool.
worries.
Um, yeah, yeah. I think it's interesting what you were talking about with how you're trying to find like your almost like your comic style and stuff. And I think I've heard you talk about that before in your videos as well. And that's it's something that I think about a lot as well. And it's just like even now, like I'm sitting here doing this illustration and I know I could like go further with the detail and I'm kind of doing that, but I don't want to go too far and I want
Mm,
to just get it done. But comics is a little bit different because I find myself with comics being a lot more lenient. Like I noticed that a lot of people's comic book style is not as good as their illustration style. Not
mm-hmm.
everybody. Some people keep it pretty consistent. I think Gazbot is like a great example of somebody whose comic book style is exactly as awesome as his illustration style.
Yes.
Um, but there's a lot of people who, it's, and especially, I guess maybe it happens more when you're kind of new at it or whatever. But like, I mean, I can sit here and do like an amazingly realistic, detailed drawing of whatever. Um, but when you look at my comics, it sometimes almost looks like I can't even draw. And it is what it is. Like it's a whole different beast, trying to make comics
Yes.
and I also don't have the time to sit there and draw every panel in the most amazing way I could possibly do.
Yeah, but it's
And
also
neither did
it doesn't always look good, don't you think?
what's that?
It doesn't always look good to make everything super realistic.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's the thing, like you were saying, like it's hard to kind of figure out like what your comic style is, and it sounds like you said you're starting to come to a little bit of an idea of it. And I don't know. One thing that I've been thinking about lately is a lot is kind of how you place those blacks, the contrasting blacks. And I'm very still new at it and trying to figure it out. But I've never heard hardly anybody. like any tutorials talk about it in a way that makes any sense to me. Although I did, because of Stanley's passing, I did watch How to Make Comics the Marvel Way the other day,
Uh-huh.
and they actually explain it pretty good in there. But still, I want more more information on
Yeah.
how to do that, and I think that's a big part. Actually, if I were to kind of do a light critique of like what your stuff, and it's the same critique for me too, to be honest. But
Hmm.
like when it comes to your comics, sometimes like it's like all this beautiful work, but sometimes it's like hard to tell like it's all a big mass of lines basically,
Yes.
and it's
Yeah,
hard to
it is.
see what pops out from what, you know what I mean?
No,
And they're
I totally
beautiful
agree with
lines,
that.
but
Yeah. No, 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 but I totally agree. Like there's such a thing as overdoing it and doodling too much, and it just doesn't always look good, especially in the smaller panels, you know?
hmm. And that's why I actually mentioned to you one time in a comment, I think sometimes it's good to have a blank background, you know, even though you want to put all these detailed backgrounds in, and you
Hmm.
want to be like, hey, I know for me, sometimes I feel like I'm almost cheating because I'm not putting enough backgrounds in. You definitely have to put enough in to keep establishing where the characters are at in space. Um,
Yes.
but sometimes it's great to have a blank background. It's not cheating, it's actually helpful in the reading of the comic to have that, you know.
Yeah. In the same way, like sometimes having figures who are just silhouettes
Yep, yep,
really helps just reading the page. But like again, like this is all stuff we're just figuring out, you know.
yeah.
These are also actually questions for someone like Peter Palmiotti as an inker.
Oh, absolutely. I've asked him about this and he said he was going to do a
Yeah,
video, but I guess he hasn't yet.
hasn't
But
happened yet.
yeah. Um, yeah, yeah, he would definitely be a good guy to talk to about that. I'm trying to think. There was something else I wanted to mention about all this. Oh, I think I'm gonna do a video series actually on this, but the now I'm blanking a little bit, but who's the guy who did the 22 panels that always work?
I have no idea.
All
I
right, I'm
think
gonna type
Josh
it in.
mentioned it once. Josh
Yeah,
Campbell
he's
from
definitely mentioned it.
Artcasters.
22 panels. I can't believe I can't think of his name. That always work. Let's see. My computer's slow. Wallywood. That's another person that should be on the list. Oh
Who?
man, how did I miss Wally Wood? He could be a contender. Oh man, I gotta. Okay. Anyways, Wally Wood's 22 panels that always work. Dude, like I'm telling you, like this is what I've been, and I want to find like a good, nice, high res version of it because I tend to a lot of the images aren't great resolution, even if it's like somebody else's rendition of these concepts. But you know, look up on YouTube. There's some videos and stuff that kind of illustrate it. But I want to do like a video per panel. But like literally when you're making your comic, like it wouldn't hurt to sit there and be like just start picking from those panels and
Okay.
using those. And it's really helpful because you know, in a lot of them, it talks about, and this is what I'm doing. I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm just saying like, this is what I've been doing, and it's been
Hmm.
helpful. Like, I've been able to have more variation in my panels and more interesting things. I'm still kind of trying to figure it out, but, yeah, these panels, especially in, taught like kind of talking heads environments, you know, they add a lot of variation and stuff. And they also there's a lot of ways that they put contrast into a composition that could be dull, but because they put some good contrast in there, it actually makes it look pretty good, you know.
And this is 22 or 23 panels that always work.
22 panels.
Okay.
Definitely worth checking out. And it's
Okay.
I
Cool.
would watch try to watch a video on it too because they use the term Ben Day, which I forget what it even means, but they use like other terms and stuff, or it's not like super clear just by looking at the image what they mean, but like some of these videos like explain it and it makes a lot more sense.
Okay. Cool. 22 panels. All right. Looks like I got my homework sorted.
Yeah, I would definitely say that to any creator. That's a good thing to at least be familiar with a little bit. So you know, and if you're stuck and you don't know how to do a certain panel, bam, you got your templates right there.
Mhm. Can we have a closer look at your drawing? Because it looks like it's coming together.
Sure, yeah. I'm gonna start inking it soon here.
Well, that looks pretty good. That looks awesome.
Thanks. Again, taken from this Jack Kirby panel here, so I'm gonna put after
After.
after Jack Kirby.
That's cool.
After Jack. So yeah. I don't know. I don't know why I'm writing it in pencil. All right, time to ink it. I was hoping, actually, you know what? I have to. I think I have to close this down. Because I have to run over to the post office. Maybe I could get it inked real quick. I don't know. What? How are you
Just
on
leave it.
time?
I should be getting going soon. What time is it right now? Where you are?
For me, it's 11:15.
Okay, yeah, it's 5:15 here. So,
Yeah.
how
Um.
long? How long have we been talking?
I don't know. It's a
Are
good
there still
question.
people in the chat that we need to address?
Yeah. Let's see. Matt C says that's a good insight. Workflow and style are related. Yeah, I think that's definitely true. It's a good point that Jan brought up. But yeah, I guess we'll close it out. It's been I think it has been going pretty long. Nobody's gonna want to watch a 3 hour video probably. I don't know how long it's been, but um, so I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me and helping me, and people in like who watch it later who were part of some of the discussion in the background as well. Like I really appreciate it. It's been fun kind of playing around with these ideas and seeing who kind of gets into this list and stuff. Again, there's no way to kind of come up with the right answer, but I think we got a good idea of what we should do and what I should do. Definitely going to be Stanley, Will Eisner, Jack Kirby, and I'm thinking probably I'm going with Bill Watterson for the fourth. Um, and yeah, so I appreciate you guys being part of that discussion and watching and hanging out. And also, Jan, I really appreciate you for coming on because I think we had some really fun chats here and stuff.
Yes, it's good talking as always.
Yes, sir. And again, um, Jan's got some comics. He's got at least one comic you can get on Gumroad. I know that. What's the link for
Yes.
that? What is? How can you find it?
Um, the link is well, if you Google Yannemal Gumroad, you'll definitely find it.
There you go.
There's I think there's about three or four things up on Gumroad, and the comics are free. So if you want to have a look at the original Phosphor, the issue 0, and you want to have a look at the rough inks version for the current version I'm working on, those are free to read. So
Yeah. Cool. That's awesome. So I'm gonna put a link in the description once I'm done with this. But definitely go to Gumroad and search for Yanimal. Also, his YouTube channel is already in the description, so check out his YouTube.
thank
He
you.
does some awesome videos of his travels and his home place of Barcelona, where he does some cool art and shows us some cool sights as well. It's like the art travel channel,
Well,
and it's awesome. Um, so yeah, definitely check his stuff out. Anything else you'd like to shout out before we go?
mm, I'm all good. Um, it's been fun hanging out. You definitely picked the number four then.
Yeah, I think we're going with Bill Watterson.
Okay, Bill Watterson. Well, that'll be someone for me to check out then. So
Well,
thanks for having me on.
you know who he is, right? He's the Calvin and Hobbes guy.
Oh yeah, of course, Calvin and Hobbes. I know.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So anyways, yeah, yeah, absolutely. No problem. I'm glad. Always happy to have you on. And everybody, you know where you can find my stuff, donkeyjawprojects.com, patreon.com/donkeyjawprojects if you want to read the comics, and Marshall Lee underscore DJP for now on Instagram and Twitter, unless I change it like I do every few months, it seems. Um, and yeah, that's about it, guys. I really appreciate you guys hanging out, and we will talk to you on the next Early Bird Artcast. And
Take
once
care.
again, I'm not prepared. All right, later, man.